Counselor Ewing? I don't see Counselor Ewing online. Oh, she's just has her camera off, maybe?
But there's not even a little square.
Okay,
with her.
I'm just going to start it. Bessie, I'm going to call the Forest Grove City Council meeting to order on July 8th at 7:18 p.m. Sorry for the late start. Will the city recorder please call roll?
Council President Rippey,
Here.
Councillor Gustafson,
Here.
Councillor Martinez,
Here.
Councillor Marshall,
Here.
Councillor Valenzuela,
Here.
Councillor Ewing,
Here.
Mayor Wenzel.
Here. Forest Grove City Council meetings are located on the land of the Tualatin Kalapuas, who call themselves the Atfalati. They are now part of the Confederate Tribes of Grand Ronde. Will the council and the audience please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next up, we have our proclamations. It is Fill the Boot for MDMA on August 23rd, 2024. Whereas Forest Grove Fire and Rescue has been working with the Muscular Dystrophy Association, MDA, in their fight against neuromuscular disease. And whereas Fill the Boot is an opportunity for Oregon firefighters to ask community members to drop donations into the fire boots to help local families served by MDA in the state. This year marks the 70th anniversary of the partnership between firefighters and MDA in the fight against muscular wasting diseases. And whereas their daily service to the community and their dedication to the Muscular Dystrophy Association, Forest Grove firefighters contribute greatly to the well-being of all of its residents. And whereas firefighters locally and nationally are the largest contributors to MDA. Forest Grove firefighters have raised funds to help fight against 43 different types of neuromuscular diseases. Now, therefore, the City Council of the City of Forest Grove does hereby proclaim August 23rd, 2024 as Fill the Boot for MDA in Forest Grove, Oregon, Washington County, and encourages all residents of Forest Grove to support the efforts of our local firefighters and the Muscular Dystrophy Association. Thank you.
I think they went on a call.
No Spanish.
I know, me too. Maybe the August meeting? And then maybe I'll just read that again. Okay, cool. Thank you. Okay, let's move on to item B. Public comment. Time provided for anyone wishing to speak to the City Council on an item not on the agenda or on the agenda but not scheduled for a public hearing. Comments are limited to 2 minutes unless additional time is granted by the presiding officer. The public comment period shall not exceed 30 minutes unless a majority of councilors present vote to extend the time. Zoom attendees may use the raise hand option to be called on. First up for public comment is Miss Christy Kotke. Can you please come to the front? Hello, Miss Kotke.
Hello, do I need, oh, I'm on. Went through a whole half a box of good and plenties and a whole bunch of scribbling out of my notes during that last conversation, Council, but I'm happy to be here tonight. Mayor and councilors, I am here tonight, not in my capacity as school board leadership, although I will share one piece of exciting news at the end about that. But I am here because of the charter review and compensation package. As we heard tonight, again from Paul, who I actually do agree with, it's no additional work, it's something we're already doing. And as David Anderson mentioned last meeting, it's a reduction in the spending to allow for people in the future, not you, people in the future who we want to encourage to be on council to have a more equitable chance. That being said, I have been perplexed about a few things as I've been listening to the past meetings. One, I wondered how many people in this town of 26,000 were laying awake at night troubled by the verbiage we use in the city charter around the mayor's role. My guess is, outside of this room tonight, It is 0. That's not at Oregon Ducks. The time and the laser focus that some on this council spent on that one topic, I really wish could have been diverted to things that we actually did hear from our community, and especially from our marginalized communities. Mainly, 1. No, wait, that's 2. The majority of respondents on our survey indicated they would support a choice about term limits. How is this council responding to that overwhelming request for our community? The irony would be if that is the one thing that doesn't actually get considered here. There are many mentions by counselors of, quote, community members they hear from and talk with. 75% of this town did not vote to elect people on this council. I would love more transparency about how each counselor does engage with the community as a whole, with our marginalized communities members, who that actually is, and what systems they have in place to get that feedback and share it in a transparent way. I would also love to see council attendance in person improve. We are emphasizing to our students and families the importance of showing up in person. Modeling that at leadership levels can send a positive message that we all need. And finally, I was gobsmacked to hear after David Anderson's detailed presentation about the compensation package restructuring, which would actually allow the city to save money and allow flexibility for incoming counselors to have a chance to serve in this city. That makes it more equitable, that there would be the kind of debate we just watched tonight. Let people make that choice. Share with us the people you've talked to, not how you personally feel, but who are those people? This conversation moves the needle towards equity, even if it is a difficult conversation to have. And finally, I'm closing with an invitation. I would like to let you know that in spirit of doing things that are a little bit new and different, to see how it opens up opportunity in this community, the school board voted this month to move our meetings to Tuesday nights next year. We did that in particular, although several members would have preferred to leave it on Monday, so that we could open opportunities in this community for people to attend both meetings. We have a person, Beverly, that has been coming to school board but would leave to come to council. That's an example of a school board thinking ahead about opening an opportunity with the decision they have to make. Thank you for the extended time tonight, and thank you for all of your service. And a final shout out to, of course, Light and Power. They are forever in my heart.
Thank you. Is there anybody on Zoom who would like to give public comment? Seeing none, we're going to move on to item C, the consent agenda. Items under the consent agenda are considered routine. Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry. Come up. I didn't see you. I'm sorry. I have a list. I'm sorry. Like to sit? Sitting's fine. Okay. Great. Thank you.
So my name is Danielle Sokolopez. I am our lead and senior driver for Ride Connection here in Forest Grove. I bring a couple of our riders that are here with us all the time. We actually had 6 more people who wanted to attend and put in a good word about us, but unfortunately it was really hot, so
Yeah.
they opted out. So we'll go ahead and go with you.
Cooler in here, so they're missing out. My name is Lauren. I am a mother of 3 children that are 10, 8, and 7 years old. I live in low-income housing out here in Forest Grove. There's no bus ability by my public housing in Forest Grove. So when my car flipped 3 weeks ago, if it was not for the Grove Link, I would be stuck. And they are not willing to move us either. So we would really be stuck. We would have no way of getting our groceries. I'd have no way of bringing my kids to the aquatic center. We'd have no way of doing anything at all. So I am forever grateful that this service exists. However, I do have a couple of recommendations as someone that is low income in this neighborhood. There's no school route. So I couldn't, if it wasn't for whoever I spoke to at the Grove Link the day of my kid's graduation, if it wasn't for them and them pulling some strings in the office and like letting it all work out, I wouldn't have been able to attend my kid's graduation at Dilly because there's no bus route out there. So I think that really needs to be taken into consideration. We really do want to be a part of our kids' lives in school too, and we don't have the ability to get there. So that's definitely an issue, I think. Also, we need some better service. I got a scholarship for the aquatic center. Super cool. They give us $100 for each member of our family. The free swims at night are from 7 to 8:45. The bus stops at 7:15. We can't get to them. My kids were incredibly disappointed when we got there and realized that there was no bus home. I was recently diagnosed with fibromyalgia, and there's no way for me to walk home. I can't get home. The drivers are amazing. They help us in ways that TriMet normally doesn't. They helped us when we got on the bus to figure out where exactly we needed to get off. They also helped us to figure out how to get food boxes. They're that amazing. So the drivers are incredible. We could really use a lot more service. Like, I know that there aren't a lot of low income people that get to talk to you guys about like what we're struggling with, and this would make our lives so much easier. We can't get like late work shifts or anything like that because there's no way for us to get home. So we're stuck on just like midday shifts. So yeah, that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lauren.
I'm a longtime user of this service. I'd just like to say that they not only have the service during the week, but on the weekend too. And then also on Saturdays, they provide a service between here and the next town down the street, which is a valuable thing to have in this area. So we need to keep the service around. It's very valuable.
Thank you.
And I can actually say for myself, I'm actually a mother of 8. And that's how I became aware of Ride Connection, because my kids kept missing the bus, and I'd have to try and figure out how they were going to get to the high school. Well, if I could get them down to, TriMet and get them down to Safeway, they could get away to the high school, so they wouldn't miss. But there is a big concern with a lot of our riders about being able to get to the elementaries, not being able to do after-school activities. We do have a limited time, even though it is a long time. There are some activities that they can't do. I know we are extending our programs. We're trying to do everything we can. We're taking and, deviating off of routes for some of our people to try and help them. And it is an amazing free service for, our patrons. We do really love the program. We would just love to have a lot more extended areas for everybody.
Thank you so much for coming and sharing your stories and your experiences. Okay, any additional public comment? I don't want to miss. Thank you. Moving on to item C, the consent agenda. Items under the consent agenda are considered routine and will be adopted with a single motion without separate discussion. Counselors who wish to remove an item from the consent agenda may do so prior to the motion. Any items removed will be discussed and acted upon following the approval of the remaining items. What is the wish of the council?
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Second. The consent agenda was moved by Council President Rippey and seconded by Councilor Guston. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say aye. Hearing none.
No.
Wait, are you is it?
I was late.
Oh, okay.
Aye for 4. Yeah.
Okay. The consent agenda is approved by the Forest Grove City Council in a 7-0 vote. Item D, additions or deletions. City Manager, any additions or deletions?
There are no additions or deletions. Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome. Any proposed by councilors? Seeing none. Item E, presentations. The council will hold questions until the end of each presentation. A 2-minute reminder will be given to the presenter to conclude remarks. We have one presentation tonight, and it's from Ride Connection. So if you would come up and share some updates, that would be great. Hi.
Hi, good evening. Thank you so much for having us, Mayor, City Council. We're really happy to be here to share updates on the Ride Connection service in Forest Grove, as well as Washington County's Shuttle Stop Enhancement Project. Next slide. So my name is Reza Farhoudi. I'm a transportation planner with Washington County, leading the Shuttle Stop Enhancement Project. And with me here today is John Whitman, Planning Supervisor for Ride Connection, He's going to talk to you about all the exciting updates happening with Ride Connection service in Forest Grove. Next slide. So we'll first talk about the county transit development plan. That's sort of the vehicle with which we are funding these service enhancements and stop improvements. John will also give an overview of Ride Connection, the services that they offer, and then he'll get into the updates planned for the Grove Link, the West Link, and the newly minted Cornelius Link in Forest Grove. And then we will talk about the ongoing shuttle stop enhancements project that the county is leading, and we'll leave some time for Q&A at the end. Next slide. So the County Transit Development Plan, this is a biennial plan that we are required to pass every 2 years as part of the statewide Transportation Improvement Fund. This is funded through the payroll, the employee payroll tax from House Bill 2017. The county is primarily responsible for the areas in green that you see on the map. Those are the rural areas outside of the TriMet Service District as well as the Smart Service District. In addition, we help facilitate the connections into the TriMet district from, for instance, Yamhill County, Tillamook County as well. And then we also, through some funding that we receive from TriMet, those go towards the community connectors that serve that first last mile connection to help connect communities, connect jobs in areas that don't have good bus or rail service within the TriMet district in blue. And that's where we get the funding for Grove Link and Cornelius Link. Next slide. So Ride Connection, we contract with them as our public transportation service provider. They help leverage a variety of funds, including local, federal, state, as well as private resources to help pay for these the transit that they provide. They also take the lead on our community partnerships and engagement with community-based organizations like Centro Cultural and other partners as well. Slide. So now I'll have John go through the Ride Connection services with you.
Thank you, Rezel, and thank you, Council, for having us this evening. Again, my name is John Whitman. I'm the Service Planning Supervisor with Ride Connection. And I've been before Forest Grove City Council a few times to present on Grove Link and more of what we do in the community. I'll just give a brief refresher, especially for folks who might be new to us. But we're a private nonprofit organization. We've been providing transportation options for older adults and people with disabilities since the late 1980s. And about 15 years ago, we expanded into providing general public shuttle service throughout Washington County, communities like Forest Grove, North Hillsborough, Tualatin, and the rural area. We're best known for providing door-to-door transportation for older adults and people with disabilities, but we do a lot more to fill needed transportation gaps in the community. Next slide. Some of those other programs include our volunteer driver program, shared vehicle partnerships with nonprofits and other groups that might need a vehicle, especially a wheelchair accessible vehicle to transport their constituents, that door-to-door service, and then our Ride Together program, which provides mileage reimbursement to neighbors, friends, family members who are giving rides to older adults and people with disabilities. With our community connectors specifically, but our transportation options more broadly, we believe they provide a number of impacts to the community. I think hearing from Grove Link riders this evening was really powerful and demonstrated a few of those impacts that you might see in specific cases. But overall, we believe that access to public transportation enhances quality of life and community connections, increases access to jobs, healthcare, shopping, and other services, provides mobility options for residents and commuters who do not have access to a vehicle, and especially older adults, people with disabilities, and students or youth. In Forest Grove especially, we see a lot of Forest Grove High School students using our services. We see it as a safe transportation option during inclement weather. I think the extreme heat we're seeing today really demonstrates the need for buses as well as bus shelters for keeping people out of the elements and allowing them to go about their daily life. And finally, we see our services as providing needed connections to other regional transit services. We see ourselves as both a community circulator, but also a first last mile option for getting onto TriMet, Tillamook Wave to get out to the coast, Yam Hill Transit to get to McMinnville, or the Point also to get out to the coast. Next slide, please. As Rez mentioned, we've got some exciting expansions of our service coming up later this month. Last year, we did a community survey to help determine what those priorities were and how to address them with the funds that we received through Washington County. Of our 170 respondents in Forest Grove, Hillsborough, and the rural area, 35% were GroveLink riders, 53% Forest Grove residents, and the majority of folks listed Forest Grove as a primary or typical destination that they needed to get to. We had people list out their top service priorities, and it was pretty evenly split between a number of priorities. The top one was adding Monday through Friday service in Cornelius and East Forest Grove. That is the priority that we're ultimately going to be implementing, although we will be extending service hours slightly and expanding to some other areas with our Westlink service. And as you heard from the GroveLink riders this evening, there's so many other priorities that we just don't have the resources yet to address. There's so much unmet need out there in the community and so much more we could be doing offering public transit services. Next slide, please. And I'll go into a little more detail on what's going to be involved in these expansions. We'll be implementing these on July 22nd of this month, and we'll be holding a formal kickoff event soon after in Cornelius. First, with the Westlink, we currently provide 4 weekday round trips per day. We're going to be increasing that to 6 weekday round trips, and primarily focusing on the early morning. We're going to have a 5:30 a.m. express trip from Forest Grove to Hillsborough that will then get people from Hillsborough Transit Center to North Plains and Banks for some of those earlier 6:30 or 7 a.m. shifts that we haven't been able to meet for commuters out there. We're also going to be modifying the route, extending to Safeway here in Forest Grove to improve connections with other shuttle services and kind of elevating that Safeway stop to more of a hub between our different shuttles and TriMet. We're also going to be doing a reroute through Forest Grove that will increase access to the service, adding a few more stops, but also increasing visibility in downtown Forest Grove and ideally increasing the visibility of the service. Next slide, please. And then, as Reza mentioned, we'll be introducing the Cornelius Link in July, which we're really excited about. We've been hearing for years that there's needed transit connections throughout Cornelius that the TriMet 57 just isn't able to meet off of the highway. We have been providing this service on Saturdays for the last 3 years, but we've known since then that Monday through Friday service really is a community need out there. So we will be operating at about 40-minute to hour frequency during the weekdays. We'll be providing better employment connections throughout the community than we had been on our Saturday route. We will be restructuring that Saturday loop to mimic what you see on the screen. And we'll be adding a few new stops at Forest Hills Mobile Estates, Central Cultural, the cinemas, Southeast Cornelius, and other destinations. Next slide, please. And finally, we have a few GroveLink service changes coming up. These will be beginning a little later in August, and we'll be putting in place a few route modifications and new stops. Some of them are pretty minor to improve the timing and efficiency of the route. Others are more significant. We'll be adding new stops at Rogers Park, Lincoln Park, Cedar and Pacific, and Burke and David Hill, places that the community is telling us need better transit access. And we'll also be sharing stops with TriMet Line 57 wherever needed and available. Next slide, please. I'm going to hand it back to Reza, and he'll be going over the shuttle stops enhancement project.
Thank you, John. So in conjunction with these improvements that are coming online, the county is working on a project to enhance the shuttle stop experience for customers. We want to also increase the awareness of the system to the general public. A lot of the times, the signs, either there are no signs or there's no landing pad for people with disabilities, or other amenities for folks to be able to wait comfortably for a bus. So we received a grant, a discretionary grant through the same STIF program to do this work. And it's not just in Forest Grove, we're doing this countywide for the entire Ride Connection system. So as part of this, we're going to be procuring and installing signage, schedule information, a landing pad where needed, shelters, benches, perhaps trash cans as well if the community desires. And so the arrangement that we've been doing with other jurisdictions is that once we install these improvements, the local jurisdictions are then responsible for what we're calling routine maintenance. And that's just to keep these assets in good working order, prevent trash buildup. If graffiti is on any of the shelters, cleaning that up, power washing. During the lifespan of these improvements, which we're calling 10 years about, and we would codify that through an intergovernmental agreement with the city. Next slide. So the issue is that when GroveLink was put in around 2015, I think, that's when these shelters were installed, and they're beyond their useful life. They require replacement. Part of the issue is that when those shelters were installed as part of GroveLink, there was no agreement put in place between Ride Connection and the city on the maintenance responsibility, and that's led us into an issue today where if something comes up, there isn't a clear organization that's responsible for making those maintenance meeting those maintenance needs. So what we're trying to do is replace all or most of the shelters with brand new models. We also want to build landing pads or expand landing pads where necessary to provide that ADA access. We're going to be providing much more conspicuous signage so folks can clearly see where the bus stops are located, as well as provide that schedule information so folks know when the bus is coming. And then, so once we complete these improvements, our grant expires at the end of this coming fiscal year, and that's when the project would formally end, and that 10-year lifespan, that 10-year period of maintenance would begin. Next slide. So I know this is a lot to take in. This is a map of stops where we've identified improvements needs. At a basic level, all stops would get new signs, those signs I showed on the previous slide with schedule information. We've identified a few that need landing pads. Those in the blue are the ones that require capital improvements. So whether it's a shelter replacement, whether it's a new or expanded landing pad, we've identified those needs. And then those in the light green are stops that would be shared with TriMet, and we're working with them on getting signage and schedule information installed. We will be sharing with them. All right, and we'll take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions? Councilor Valenzuela.
Yes, thank you so much for the presentation. It was so exciting to see the maps of Forest Grove and Cornelius with the, that they're going to have their route too, and that is just really great. But my question is, so do you go by the high school, the Forest Grove High School?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. No, because we heard from someone that gave testimony that it doesn't, there's no trust.
As we were talking about Dilly Hill Elementary.
Oh, okay, all right. So many students use the bus?
Yeah, we found in our surveying that that we do annually that between 40% and 60% of our ridership is our students, either high school students, Pacific University students, or we even see some younger middle-aged students, middle school-age students as well.
Okay, so that ridership is going really well.
Ridership is going better than it had been.
Okay.
And we're certainly optimistic about it. We saw the same cratering of ridership that other transit agencies did as a result of the pandemic.
Yeah.
But we've seen it go up pretty significantly within the past year. I think April was our first month in 4 years where we went above 3,000 riders in a single month. So it's grown by about 20% since this time last year, which makes us hopeful. We would like to see it grow faster. We know the need is out there. I think part of the way that we address ridership and better serving the community is through better marketing, better visibility, and these bus stops will go a long way in legitimizing, professionalizing the service, and just getting the word out to the community.
Because that was your goal when the last time you were here. So obviously, whatever you're doing, it's working, because that's what you need is visibility. And thank you so much for the service you do to our community.
Thank you.
Thank you. Council President Rippey.
Thank you. Thank you both for the presentation. I cannot emphasize enough how important this service is to the residents of Forest Grove. It's vital. The last mile to the public transit is important, but just the interconnectivity within the community is extremely important to students and seniors alike, to a lot of people. Thank you. I do have a couple questions. First of all, I am a member of the TV Highway Steering Committee that's run by Metro, and I'm wondering if you are checking with them and collaborating with them with regard to the TriMet, co-locating the TriMet stops, because I noticed there was at least one stop on your map that TriMet is recommending to eliminate that would not make sense for you to co-locate there as well.
Do you recall which stop that is?
If you would show the map again, I could tell you, yes.
I think it's Cedar and 19th.
No, that's not it. It was over further east. If you can show the map, okay. I think it would be the Grand Lodge.
That westbound stop? They're just to eliminate that altogether or move it?
Yeah, because they're planning on putting that one in at Pacific and Oak, and that's just a couple hundred meters apart from each other. There's no sense in having both of them.
That's a great.
So I wouldn't. Yeah, and then if you leave that map up, I have a question, and again, it goes back to some of the comments made by the public earlier. But does the city how is the city involved in helping determine what routes you have and where the stops are? Because I think one of the reasons for that would lead to increased ridership are the location of the stops. And there are some areas, particularly on the west side, there are vast gaps between stops. And in a conference I went to with the National League of Cities, and we talked about public transit, particularly the last mile, first mile concept. They talked about having a stop within 20-minute walk of anywhere within the city. And, looking at that map, we have a heavy emphasis on the commercial corridor down below and a good spread around. But I could see that there are areas within the city that are more than a 20-minute walk. And that might be something. I know where I think the city could give you some input onto where we think some of those stops ought to be, or maybe the way the route is run.
Yeah, thank you, Councilor, for that feedback. And we would certainly invite those conversations with the city to determine possible future bus stop locations. Many of these were determined back in 2013 after Forest Grove did the planning study, and Ride Connection first received funding to operate this service. And there may need a need to re-examine some of the unmet need out in the west area and possible future stop locations. I will add that we are a flexible service. We will do flag stops anywhere along the route. We'll also deviate up to a half mile off route. So that does open up some accessibility to the service between those huge gaps that you might see, say, between Willamina and Strasburg and 19th and B.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, I do see the value of having actual bus stops, both for accessibility reasons, especially if someone's using a mobility device, or really just increasing that visibility of the service in a part of town that might not have that. So I would be happy to participate in a future discussion of that as we look to refine and improve the service.
Well, thank you. I think I might get a hold of you or give you my number. You have your number there, so I should be able to get a hold of you and make some recommendations.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you very much. Again, it's a very valuable service and vital to our community. Really is.
Yeah, I just want to ask a couple questions and thank you for the presentation. So going back to the TV Highway Steering Committee, one of the things I heard while at the farmers market was there's concern by some members of our population that when TriMet eliminates stops in Forest Grove, those are close to like senior centers and retirement homes. And so that would, just like working with them to make sure that, because this woman explained to me, like sometimes she doesn't want to plan ahead. Like she knows she can plan ahead and call, but that you just like get an inkling for some type of food or you need something. And so just working with Metro and that steering committee would be great. And then the other thing I just like to say is that I, really, I've been mentioning it to President Coyle, Dr. Coyle at Pacific, about telling incoming freshmen and like through that recruitment process that about Ride Connection, because I think it's a great service. It's a great service to literally everybody in this community, but especially for college kids who are coming and there's like that question, like, do we need a car? Do we not need a car? I think Forest Grove's really walkable. I think to get to like a grocery store, to a restaurant, like that's, then they wouldn't have to pay for parking. It just helps everybody. So I think they started putting that in their orientation material about Ride Connection, but just checking in with the university. And I think those are just my couple comments. But again, thank you. I'm going to give a shout out to the former mayor Truax, who was instrumental in bringing Ride Connection to Forest Grove. It's just definitely been a huge blessing to our whole community. And thank you for your efforts too.
Thank you, Mayor. We really appreciate those sentiments. Is there a contact that you might be able to provide to us at Pacific University to help start that conversation with them?
Yeah, I will send you an email following this meeting and get you that information. Perfect. Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, are there any additional questions? Okay. I think we're good. Thanks, gentlemen.
Thank you so much.
Okay, we're going to move on to item F, which is public hearings, ordinances, and resolutions. We have resolution number 2024-35, calling an election in the city of Forest Grove on November 5th, 2024 to amend the city home rules chart. And I'm going to turn this over to our city attorney, Ashley Driscoll.
All right. Good evening, City Council. City Attorney Ashley Driscoll. I am going to go over the ordinance in front of you this evening. For those who are not familiar with this process, I'm going to give the briefest of overviews of how the city has the path that we've taken to this point. The City Council decided to undertake a process in order to review your city charter to make sure that it continued to meet the needs of the community well into the future. And in February 2023, the council formed the Charter Review Committee. And the Charter Review Committee, starting in August of last year, met 14 times to review the charter in its entirety, some areas of interest specifically recommended from the City Council, and to compare it to the League of Oregon Cities model charter to have any recommendations for amendments. The Charter Review Committee also had an opportunity to receive public comment, which it did at 2 publicly noticed meetings. It incorporated the public comment that it received in its recommendations to the City Council. So the Charter Review Committee provided their recommendations along with a report outlining their process and their reasoning, which was submitted to the Council this spring. The Council then took the recommendations from the Charter Review Committee and met and discussed them in work sessions on 4 different occasions. The City Council ultimately adopted some of the recommendations from the Charter Review Committee, amended and declined others. In the very highest level of detail, the amendments that are now before the city council amend the role of the mayor, amend the city manager residency requirement, provide for procedural and efficiency amendments. For instance, how the city presents amendments to resolutions, ordinances, and orders, when the term of a councilor starts and stops, and other such procedural matters. The other, I would say, largest substantive amendment is regarding filling vacancies. One of the issues that we discussed at length is what happens in the unfortunate instance where the number of seated councilors fall below the quorum requirement. The Charter Review Committee recommended, and the City Council has also recommended reducing the voting and quorum requirements only for the vote about how to fill the council seats in order to have enough councilors to be able to conduct business. The amendments also shorten the term or potentially shorten the term of any appointed councilor to just finishing the role of the councilor who vacated the seat. So a maximum of 2 years for an appointed council. So as many of you are aware, all amendments to the city charter must be approved by voters. So what's before you tonight is a resolution that takes a number of actions. First, it calls the election for the citizens of Forest Grove to consider the charter amendments approved by the city council. It certifies and files the ballot title and explanatory statement. Those are the documents that are going to appear in the voter's pamphlet. And it directs the city manager and city recorder to take all action necessary in order to ensure this matter appears on the ballot in November 2024. So if the resolution is approved tonight, that's the last action the city council needs to take in order to refer this issue to voters. The city manager and the city recorder, along with my office, will take a couple additional steps in order to get the ballot title finalized and over to the county. If everything goes as planned, this matter will appear on the voters pamphlet in November 2024, with any amendments to the city charter being effective thereafter. So I am available for any questions regarding the resolution in front of the council.
Ashley, I have a question. You mentioned that part of the amendment was to limit the role of the council president, and I believe that last work session, we had actually changed that to put that, and there was a consensus to move that to council rules. If like for each council, like when a council comes on, right, you go over the council rules, you make your rules for that elected body, and it was not going to be mandated by the charter. But I just heard you say it was part of it, so I need some clarification.
Sure. So if I said limit the role of the mayor, then I misspoke. The charter amendments in front of you do amend the description of the role of the mayor. So it's my understanding at the last work session, the city council made some changes, but not any to the proposed language for the mayor. I'm going to get that in front of me right now.
I'm talking about the council president, not the mayor.
I'm sorry, the council president. Okay, the council president, there's no changes to the council president, only changes to the role of the mayor.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Any questions for Ms. Driscoll? Council President Rippey.
Thank you, Ashley, for that review. The question I had has to do with when this takes effect. And would that be after the county validates or certifies the election results?
Yes, it would be.
So if they validate that, say, for example, on the 1st of December, then it takes effect on the 1st of December.
Yes, it would. Oh, hold on.
Okay.
Yes, it would.
All right. Thank you.
Any further questions? Councilor Gustafson.
I think that the staff went back to kind of reword this before, but are we going line by line? I don't want to jump ahead. We're talking about the disability, replacing the word disability. It's been replaced with a physical or mental impairment, which I don't think is a good choice of words either. It should be.
I think the deal, and staff can correct me, I think that the issue that staff was working with is that under federal law, to be able to like have, like it had, like they were using word, like disability is used to protect the person with a disability to be fired because of their disability. Like the language is used as a federally recognized language terms in order to protect individuals. And staff can correct me if I'm mistaken, but that's my understanding of like why we couldn't just wordsmith it to whatever word we wanted, was because it had to be federally recognized protection.
Okay, so I'll finish what I was trying to say, but the word we discussed before was incapacitated. So that really says I can't do my job. It doesn't say that I'm physically or mentally impaired, because there are many of us that are physically and mentally impaired, but we can still perform our duties. So it's concerning is all.
Go ahead, Ashley.
Yeah, there can be further discussion regarding what the council's intent there was. You know, when you read this provision, it's talking about when the council can step in and appoint a pro tem to act in the stead of a counselor. And the idea of using the word disability is essentially saying, you know, when the council member is unable, you know, they're unable to attend meetings, then that is when this would be triggered. So you can certainly go with incapacitated. My understanding of what the council was looking for, incapacitated didn't necessarily fit. So incapacitated, you know, what exactly does that mean? You know, yeah, so I guess I would need to hear from the council about what exactly you would mean by incapacitated, and is that really the language that you want to say here? The intent of the provision is that if a member of the council is unable for, you know, a physical or cognitive reason to be able to attend the meetings, then that's an opportunity for the council to appoint somebody until that person has recovered. So it's not necessarily supposed to be importing, you know, the definition of disability under the ADA. It's supposed to be, you know, recognizing that there are times it happens to in most people's lives where, you know, a physical or mental impairment or disability prevents us from being able to do our jobs. And in those occasions, it makes sense to have somebody, you know, fill in for us for a short period of time. So I'll send it back to the council. When you say incapacitated, is that the correct word? And if so, we can insert it, but I'd be interested to know, you know, exactly what we mean there.
Did you want to follow up, Councilor Gustafson?
I'll just make one more comment, and then I know Councilor Ewing has a comment, but I just want to make sure that all elected officials are protected and are not just disregarded because they have an issue that they are dealing with, and other people on council just decide, well, you're disabled, you're mentally impaired, so we're going to have somebody else step in for you, whether you want that or not. What are the provisions? What are the bumpers around that to protect the elected official? So this is something to think about.
Councilor Ewing.
Thanks for coming tonight, Ashley. Or actually, you're on Zoom. I'm sorry. So yes, I agree with what is being said by Donna. I think that when you talk about physical and mental impairment, one of the key things you said, Ashley, was unable to do their job. Well, who is determining the mental capability? Who is determining the physical capability if I am able to do my job, attend my assignments, and do those types of activity? Then does it become just up to the council to make those really critical, what I consider really critical medical decisions?
So if I could answer that. So what the provision actually says is that when you're not able to attend meetings. So it doesn't talk about, you know, nobody's making a decision about, you know, your physical or mental ability to do the job. It says very specifically here, prevents a council member from attending council meetings. And if you remember if you scroll up a little bit or look further, section 31, which is vacancies. So when is a council
Ashley. Yeah, just
Ashley just froze.
seat
Ashley,
vacant?
can you rewind what you were saying because you were frozen for like the last 15 seconds? So you just said
Okay.
go up to section 31 vacancies.
Yeah, so can you hear me now? Am I better?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this kind of pairs with section 31, which is vacancies. What are the occasions where the council can declare a seat vacant? And you have in here that an absence from the city for 30 days or from all council meetings within a 45-day period without council consent is a potential event where your seat can be declared vacant. So if you scroll back down, so this is filling vacancies. To me, this recognizes a situation where there's a short-term, typically medical reason why a counselor cannot attend council meetings. Before Zoom, I think we can imagine, how this could come up more frequently. But, in the occasions that the person is unable to attend meetings, and again, we're not talking about making determinations about, whether they're physical, mentally able to do the job, but when they're not able to attend a meeting, instead of that seat being declared vacant, there's this option to have somebody step in on a pro tem basis in order to fill their role. So I do think it's a protection for when life events come up that don't allow council members to be able to attend meetings.
Thanks, Ashley. I appreciate that. I will still contend that the word disable is in our current DEI philosophy appears to be very offensive. Incapacitated to do meetings. Can we make that a bit clearer in that discussion when we're talking about incapacitated, unable to attend required meetings? Can we do that language so it's much clearer than just disabled?
Well, the language we have now says if a physical or mental impairment prevents a council meeting from a council member from attending council meetings, or a member is absent from the city, a majority of the council member may appoint a councilor pro tem. So the current language is pretty clear that what we're talking about is when somebody's not able to attend meetings.
I just get really nervous. As a person with disabilities, I get really nervous when we call out disabilities. Used to be called handicapped. We've made a lot of changes in attitudes about people with disabilities, and I just want to make sure that we are clear in our language that we're using. That's just my main concern.
And if the council would like additional edits to that, we can certainly consider them.
Council President Rippey.
Thank you. So the idea behind the word incapacitated, because it simply means not in a capacity. It doesn't designate whether it's physical or mental. So I could not be in a capacity to attend meetings because I have a sick parent somewhere that needs care, and for a couple months I've got to attend a sick parent. I'm not physically or mentally impaired, but I am not in a capacity to attend a meeting. So that's why I prefer that term, because it actually is a bit broader and just says I don't have the capacity to attend. Thank you.
So could I just provide a little context to that as well? I think that does expand the purpose of the charter provision. So I think, again, just how the charter is currently drafted is to carve out, certain instances where a council member may not be able to attend. I haven't seen it used for, I have to go, for any reason other than a physical mental impairment. So, I think that expands a little bit how this charter provision could be used.
So are you saying that when you say expand, is that a good or a bad thing? I'm not quite sure I followed you.
I just want to be clear about like the potential cons of the amendment. So again, how it's typically used is when somebody has a health condition that prevents them from attending city council meetings. And that is sort of an excuse, that is a legitimate reason why somebody would not be able to attend city council meetings. And again, this is all, generally the city council has to work together in order to resolve these issues, but it's a little bit of an expansion. So now it's not just, the counselor has a health condition that prevents them from attending, that there could be other reasons why they are not fulfilling their role as a city councilor, and the council then appoints a councilor pro tem. And if that's what the council would like to do, then yes, let's do that. But I just want to be clear that it is a expansion of how this charter provision is typically used.
Yeah, my feelings on it is I think I want to protect, I have cerebral palsy, legitimately born. I'm a person with a disability. I'm not offended by it, but that's not to say other people aren't offended. But I'm all about protecting people who are going through something that impairs their ability to perform the job. I don't want to expand it because being incapacitated could mean that your job is taking you someplace else. You've moved someplace else. Like, I don't want to expand that. I think if someone runs for this office and takes that responsibility, then you want someone that's here consistently, right? I know things come up and they're unplanned, and that's what this is for. But to me, there's like a balance of protecting individual rights and then just saying like, hey, well, maybe you live part of the time in a different state and you're not coming to all the work sessions and you're not showing up for the public functions, but you're incapacitated right now because of this or this or this. So I am fine with the wording as it is now with impairment or disability, but that's just me. Councilor Gustafson.
Just another comment, and we might not even need line D just because it addresses not being able to attend meetings for 45 days or being in the state for 30. So that's already covered in this document. So I'm not sure why this piece is needed, but we also have to consider FMLA. So this isn't a situation where, I have a winter home that I go to, and so half the year I'm gone. It's actually not being able to perform your duties. And so how are we talking about FMLA too when we're taking care of a sick spouse or child? Is that covered under here? We have something in here about the 30 days, 45 days. So I don't even know if this is needed at all.
I'm going to respond to that part of it, and then Ashley can respond. So my understanding is if a counselor or the mayor doesn't attend a meeting for 45 days, they can be removed from their position. This section of the charter, my understanding is they have they are impaired temporarily because of something. And so but then they would get their position back. So that's what this is to protect, that if something medically happens, somehow you're disabled, you're impaired, something happens, that you're not relinquishing your elected position. If you don't show up for 45 days, then you could be removed, right? That's my understanding. Ashley, you can correct me if I'm mistaken.
So you're exactly right. So one provision is filling a vacancy. So what triggers potential vacancy? An absence from 30 days, an absence from all meetings for 45. This provision says that under these circumstances, when somebody is physically or mentally impaired, or a member is absent from the city, so we should make sure that we incorporate that one. In those circumstances, the council may appoint somebody on a temporary basis in order to fill in for that counselor. So it's giving the council the authority to appoint somebody on a short-term basis when another counselor is either completely away from the city or is typically physically unable to attend council meetings.
Council President Rippey.
I'm okay. I'm okay with the language of physical and mental impairment. I'm not gonna. I think we've talked enough about this. I think there's enough understanding within the context of those words that would allow a counselor to be temporarily absent, but then return when they're able to do that again. So, thank you.
Any other comments from council? Seeing none. Oh, Counselor Ewing.
I'm okay with the impairment language. My main concern was with the disability statement. I'm okay with this. I understand what it will provide us. I would prefer a better word, but I think unless Donna has something more to add, I can deal with this.
Ms. Driscoll.
Yes. One more thing I want to add before we move on. Councilor Rippey, you asked the effective date of the charter, and I said when the ballot measure was certified. It is actually January 1st, 2025. That is in the new charter amendments.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Okay, any further questions for city attorney or city staff? Okay, I will now ask for a motion.
I move to approve resolution 2024-35.
I second.
Second.
Resolution number 2024-35 was moved by Councilor Valenzuela and seconded by Councilor Martinez. Let's do discussion, and then we'll read it by title only. So let's open the floor for discussion. Any discussion? I'm going to say one thing about it. Okay, go ahead, Councilor President Rippey.
Yeah, I want to just put kudos out to the Charter Review Committee with Miss Ashley and her support and assistance in going through this. It's been a much needed review. I think the recommendations reflect what it is that both the committee and the council were intending. So job well done. Thank you.
Thank you, Council President. I second what Council President Rippey said. I think the Charter Review Committee did a great job. I think that our city attorney did a great job. I am, and I'm going to be completely honest because I flip-flopped. Like, I can't really decide either. I'm a little concerned about, in every city survey and when I talk to people, people in the community, they're like, hey, we need some term limits. Some of your council doesn't show up. Like, we need to give other people accessibility. So, but I also believe that, we can let the voters say what they want to say and give us some direction on it. So, but I do really appreciate the Charter Review Committee and our city attorney, Ashley Driscoll, and city staff. I think Joyce was there every meeting as well. Any further discussion? Okay, will the city manager please read the resolution by title only?
Resolution number 2024-35, calling an election in the city of Forest Grove on November 5th, 2024 to amend the city's home rule charter.
Thank you. Will the city recorder please call roll?
Council President Rippey,
Yes.
Councilor Gustafson,
Yes.
Councilor Martinez,
Yes.
Councilor Marshall,
Yes.
Councilor Valenzuela,
Yes.
Councilor Ewing,
Yes.
Mayor Wenzel.
Yes. Resolution number 2024-35 has been approved by the Forest Grove City Council in a 7-0 vote. Thank you. Moving on to item G, council communication. We'll do our council reports. Council President Rippey, you are up first.
Thank you. I have no real report to do. I do have a question of staff. Tomorrow, the LOC is hosting a 1-hour session on the Grants Pass versus Johnson and the Supreme Court and how that all impacts things. Is anybody from staff or is the city attorney attending that so that we can be informed in the future as to how that impacts the policy that this council decided several months ago?
The short answer is yes.
Okay.
We will have someone in attendance.
All right. It's tomorrow morning.
All right.
Thank you. That's all I have, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Gustafson.
I have nothing to report, but I do have a joint water commission meeting this week, so I'll have something next time.
Do you know when the 7th generation from the Public Arts Commission, when that, I've had it on my notes that was going to happen sometime this summer. I'm just trying to.
Yes, and they will notify you as soon as they have the install date and the party date, which will be sometime after the install date, just in case something funny happens.
Got it. Thank you. And next up, Counselor Marshall.
I have nothing to report at this time.
Okay. And who's up next? Counselor Martinez.
The rural fire department did not have quorum, so we didn't have a meeting.
Okay, thanks. And then Counselor Ewing.
So I wanted to report, excuse me, on the Forest Grove Senior Center, Community Center, excuse me. Their next meeting will be July 15th. The kitchen is out of compliance due to a non-functional hot water hand washing station. So this is limiting Meals on Wheels, limiting their ability to put on any type of food type of opportunities for our community. When we talked, I was hoping that would be resolved. They've been working with the contractor and trying to get this resolved. But the only thing that will be able to be provided is prepackaged foods and frozen foods that do not require actual hands-on touching of the food. They've decided to hold off on the first Friday dinners. They only had 8 in attendance this first Friday, and unfortunately that does not even really cover their overhead. So that will be put on hold until further notice. The car show is coming up for July 20th, and they are going to be needing volunteers. So if you guys would like an opportunity to work with them, please let the senior center know. And I'm sending a public call out for volunteers if you have time or the desire. Celebrate Forest Grove event, formerly called the Mayor's event, has been tabled until after the car show. CCE postponed their meeting until the 16th due to holidays and vacations and quorum. I also wanted to mention that the severe weather shelters are open. They've extended that list. It's quite a much more extensive list of where you can cool down, and that list can be gotten through Washington County. Okay, that's me.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Valenzuela.
Yes, I have nothing to report. Meeting this week on Thursday.
Okay, thank you. And now we'll roll on over to our city manager report.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a few things. You may have seen staff at the first Wednesday market. We've had a couple booths there and been sharing a lot of information about 2040, police, library events, etc. So get a chance, please stop by. The Historic Landmarks Board will host a TLC event, Preservation TLC event on August 3rd. So from 9 to 12 in the community auditorium right here. The Building Improvement Grant Program is now live on the website. So that was the program that was recently approved by the Urban Renewal Agency Board. So it's live. There'll be signups through the end of December this year, and then there'll be a process for going through those particular projects. Summer reading has been very successful thus far. We have 2 programs going on. One is for the children, but the other one is called Read for a Cause. And that's when adult readers can read. And if they, for every 100 hours that they read, the Friends will donate a meal. And thus far, we've had 177 adults register, and we've had 834 children sign up as well. Library construction project is going good. So thank you to the community for pardoning our dust and the noise in the library. And then last but certainly not least, the community engagement event at Kyle Park. It drew about 60 community members. Got a lot of really good feedback on that and more to follow on there. And excuse me, I forgot one thing. Chill with the Chief is going to be at Bard Park on July 24th.
On June or July 24th?
July 24th, Chill with the Chief at Bard Park.
At what time?
Didn't have a time.
Okay.
I would assume it would probably be at lunch, but I'll get back to you on that.
Thank you.
Sorry. Thanks.
Okay. I'm going to go over some meetings I have coming up in the next 2 weeks. And that way, if counselors want to tell me any talking points that they want me to bring up, I can do my best to facilitate that. So on Friday, I'm meeting with our community development director with the DLCD in terms of the state guidelines and things with climate friendly act that we had a work session about earlier tonight. On Monday is a busy day. WCCC is meeting, Washington County Coordinating Committee. Just as an FYI, a few mayors and myself, Tualatin Mayor, Sherwood Mayor, North Plains, and Hillsborough wrote a joint letter, just basically very similar to the letter that the Washington County Commissioners wrote to ODOT, that we wrote to them just saying, hey, like, we're a team, we want to be, treated with in more than an advisory and keep our partnership going in regards to MISTIP, just really trying to make sure to elevate cities, municipality, and city concerns about MISTIP funding and the commitment for the commissioners to honor those MISTIP funds. And then at the chair and mayor meeting at 3:30, we're going to hear from people in how the Measure 110 reform, what that means, the deflection, and what that means for our local municipalities and how that's going to be carried out. So I think that's of interest to this council, and I'll bring that back in August. And then our MYAC meets at 6 p.m. at the library, and we'll go over, they are going to do a voter registration drive with Pacific's leadership and student body group. They had some other things they wanted to work on. And then also for people who are part of the city club or when you go to the chamber, Council President Rippey, they are also interested in service projects. So if there's things coming up and then how they can sign up for that, or if you guys are interested in them, we're helping with the corn roast or Oktoberfest, please let me know with that. I'm also meeting, hang on, my calendar, I have my battery saver on. So then on Tuesday the 16th, I have a walkthrough with CWS and Congresswoman Bonamici that I'm attending at 10. On the 17th, I'm meeting with members of the Family Justice Center, have reached out to have a meeting with me in the morning. Then on, I think I'm off for a little bit. I am not attending the Oregon Mayors Association conference this year. It is my parents' 50th anniversary. So those are some things coming up. And just a friendly reminder that we do not have a second July meeting or a first August meeting. So we will meet again, I believe, on the 26th. Hang on. I just had my calendar open, I'll tell you. So our next council meeting is August 26th at 5:30. Okay, and with that, I will adjourn, but we do have a work session immediately following. Okay, meeting adjourned. What?